Hello there, Talkin fight fans. Welcome once again to another exciting episode of The Scoop featuring the champ, Bola Ray, who's continuing his fantastic series on the 80s, the Fab Four, not the Beatles, but in fact, well, I don't even think they were around in the 80s. But in fact, four fantastic boxers who went head to head, created great rivalries, and the showdown now is coming to a head, and the question's been asked, and you, sir, are about to answer it. Let her rip.
Well, what can I say? The 80s started not with a bang, but with an absolute explosion with the brawl in Montreal, Leonard versus Duran won. This contest determined who had the better inside game, which was completely Duran. Now, in Duran's contest with Hearns, he never got the chance to show his inside fighting game and this was the most impressive and one-sided destruction of any of the 5-4. But this was also at 154 pounds. After the 13th round in the Duran Hagler fight, Duran was up on two of the three judges' scorecards by 1 point. Duran was winning the fight at the end of the 13th round. What would have happened if he didn't break his hand in the 13th round? He only needed one more round to win the fight. He needed to win one more round. History dictated he couldn't do it. He only had one hand. Leonard beat Duran absolutely brilliantly in their second dance, which really exposed his boxing IQ. Win the fight, not fight the fight. Win the fight, get the W. And in winning the fight, in outboxing him, it was a short night still for one of the most unbelievable reasons in boxing history. Leonard and Hearns, in their first fight, Ray was actually outboxed by Hearns, both on the outside and on the inside. Hearns earned my respect when I saw that he actually outboxed arguably one of the greatest boxers of all time. But he didn't get the W. I'm not here to go off and challenge any of the decisions. It's just stating that Hearns outboxed Leonard for 13 rounds, and then he got caught. Leonard tried a number of different strategies to get the W because this is Leonard's strength. He knows how to win. And in doing so, he found one. Straight up bravado. He outfought the man. Hearns has a suspect chin. In the second fight, I did an episode on this in my Greatest Boxing Robberies series. Showed that Hearns had improved since their first encounter, in that he now understood how to clinch. He didn't. He had never had to clinch up to that date, up to that fight, at least in his professional career. So his inability and improper style of clinching, grabbing behind the head and letting the arms flow freely and just rip him apart to the body, well, it proved unsuccessful. He corrected that wrong, and in the second fight, he got rocked. But this time, armed with the knowledge of how to clinch, he was able to weather the storm, clear his head, and as far as I'm concerned, clearly win that fight. He dropped Leonard twice. He clearly won that fight, even though they called it a draw. Then Leonard went on to fight. Oh, actually, before that, Leonard actually admitted that he himself knows that Hearns beat him the second time. When he was presenting or welcoming Hearns into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, he actually admitted that the second fight he actually did lose. Now, Leonard's next fight was against Hagler, where in some people's eyes, this fight was just as big a robbery as the Hearns 2 fight. Leonard was outboxed, he was outfought in that fight, and they gave him the win. But so be it. Hagler went on to fight Hearns, actually prior to the Leonard fight, but this fight was only outdone by the Hearns Duran knockout. Duran did a face plant and laid motionless. He was never in this contest. He never saw anything called success. And this was done by the second round. The first round, he touched canvas twice. Now, with that being said, in short, I love these guys for different reasons, for absolutely and completely and utterly different reasons. They were instrumental in my development as a fighter and as a coach. They embodied so many attributes that I think are just integral to being a successful fighter, let alone a champion. Now, with a record of 62-1, Duran was the greatest lightweight champion in history at the time, and pretty much, I think the only person that could have beaten Duran at lightweight may have been Mayweather with his run and touch, run and touch, run and touch style. I don't see Pacquiao out punching him at lightweight. I don't see even the great, and I love Pernell Whitaker. I don't see him having that level of success. He would have mauled him at lightweight. So, yeah, I think that maybe Mayweather, just because he's a little bit taller than him and he is fast on his feet. But that's a strong maybe. Like, actually, more likely not. He was beyond impressive. Now, his reason for going up in weight was that he wanted a piece of Leonard. It could be understandably he didn't want to struggle with making weight anymore, or he wanted to fight bigger guys just for the challenge, or he wanted the bigger paydays because the heavier weight classes get the bigger paydays, or a combination of the collective. But if he had just stayed at lightweight, I think he would have. I can't see someone beating him in his 120 fight career. Again, that is. So, all the same, Duran is one of my favorites of all time. Like, you just can't take that. You can't take it away from him. That grit, that just toughness. But his inside knowledge was second to none. The way he created spaces, the way he used his head to maneuver people's chins just so as to put them in the right position to catch them with an uppercut or hooks or what have you. Still legendary. I still have yet to see anybody come anywhere remotely close to doing anything like that. But why not? Now, another question I have is, why didn't Tommy fight Marvin again in a rematch? Their fight is still renowned as the greatest 3 rounds in boxing history. There's no question in my mind that Marvin deserved that win. And I'm not, once again, I am not attempting to say anything other than Marvin fought an amazing fight and won that fight legitimately. But one, in the first round, 2 of the 3 judges gave the round to Tommy. And in the first round, Tommy broke his hand. So what would have happened if he didn't break his hand? Who could say? And once again, forgive me, but I'm just playing fantasy boxing. But what would have happened? Tommy went into the second round, and Hagler's superior fitness level really showed, because Tommy was completely gutted. Yeah, that was the greatest first round in boxing history. But they both gave. They both gave and received. Yeah, Tommy got the better of him, but Tommy came out spent in the second round. Hagler was completely still ferocious, still ready to go, and he took the second round because of it. Tommy was trying to establish his jab and move around, and he was not strong enough to repel the advances of that madman. There's nothing you could do. So, and then the inevitable happened. But what would have happened if he didn't break his hand? He'd have been able to put up a better fight. Would it have been able to actually slow Hagler down or stop him, even though I don't think anyone has ever slowed Hagler down? Who knows? Again, fantasy boxing. Tommy was winning the fight with Leonard 1 on all 3 scorecards going into the 14th round. And that was after Leonard had already knocked him down in the 13th round. But he was up by a large margin. The fight was his. If he could have survived another 6 minutes, the fight was his. Now, the sport of boxing is all about inches. And Tommy got caught. Full stop. Having never been in this situation before, at least not in his professional career, he blundered. And he, again, like I said, he didn't know how to clinch, how to preserve himself, how to buy time until the next the bell went. In the rematch, you saw, in my eyes, he outboxed Leonard easy, and you saw how he had progressed. He did his homework and he learned how to clinch. He got rocked, but he learned how to clinch. Therefore, outside of that win, I don't think that there's anybody that could have beaten Tommy at welter or light welter. He was a freak of nature. He was with those freakish dimensions, 6'1", 6'6" reach. This is at a guy who's 140 or 147 pounds. I just don't see it. And it proved positive. If he had just stayed at welterweight outside of the loss to Ray, who would have beaten him? He walked into that fight with a record of 32 wins, 32 fights, and 30 knockouts. Who would have beaten him? And then we come to his sweetness. He was just that to watch. He is the only one of the Fab Four to get a win, a W, over all the other participants of that weight class. One thing that Ray knew how to do was Ray knew how to win. He did whatever it took to win the fight. It took him his 16th round before he could start figuring out how to beat Duran. That was his boxing IQ. In his 16th round, he put together a plan that worked flawlessly. It was after the 13th round that he figured out how to beat Tommy via just stand your ground and swing for the fence. And he caught him. Tommy had a suspect chin. He exposed his suspect chin. Ray beat Marvin before they stepped in the ring. Ray went and in some which way, shape, or form convinced him to give up all his strengths. Well, not all, but a few of them, like the 12 rounds as opposed to 15 rounds after an inactivity for over 3 years, or the 22-foot ring as opposed to the 20-foot ring in a fight against one of the smartest boxers ever. What did you think he was going to do? He was just going to run. Both these scenarios actually worked as a disadvantage towards Marvin and is a tribute to Leonard's IQ, boxing IQ. Yeah. A friend of mine today posted on Facebook a question of which I had to bring it up here. I found the answers given rather interesting. Now, the question was, if you were the #1 contender for the welterweight division, who would you hope the champion would be? Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, or Floyd Mayweather Jr.? Now, for me, it's unequivocally, without even second guessing it, would be Floyd Mayweather. He's not in their class. Not a welterweight. Now, there were people saying Hearns, of which I was just like, you're out of your mind. Like, there isn't a scintilla of sense at all in that statement. You'd feel comfortable fighting Hearns at welterweight. Yeah, Hearns was was a better boxer than the two others. He just got caught, as did so many of Ray's past foes. They just got caught. The likelihood of catching him isn't always all that high. So do you want to gamble on that as opposed to gambling? It makes no sense to me. Now, I will discuss Mayweather in a future episode, so I'll leave it at that. As for the other two, I totally put them in a class of their own. Like I said, I feel that Duran was the greatest lightweight of all time. Hagler, I think, was the greatest middleweight. Actually, not the greatest, but the greatest to that time. I think he was only surpassed by young Roy Jones Jr. Ray seemed to have figured out Duran by their second fight, and he just used he used his strategy perfectly. He clocked on a complete shutout, winning 12 rounds, outboxing him and barely breaking a sweat. But again, that was 168 pounds. Duran had no business being that heavy. Now, do you think, or what do you think would happen if Ray were to go down to lightweight and fought Duran? I don't think he'd be that successful dropping all that weight. I don't think he'd be that strong. I don't think he'd be able to maintain his strength, his speed, for as long as he did. The wear and tear of dealing with Duran, he just would not survive. I think the same holds true with Tommy. But then, and when it comes to Marvin, none of these guys should have gone up to middleweight and to meet Marvin. Actually, that same friend of mine actually referred to Marvin as a bully. And I said, why? He goes, well, because Marvin never left middleweight. He made all the three champions come up to middleweight to fight him. And that gave him a staunch advantage. I thought this was an interesting take, but I don't know if bully would be the right word. He was advantageous. He did what Ray did to him. He made them come and play in his sandbox and then show him that he's the best in his sandbox. That's all. Does he make him better than the rest? I don't know. So to answer the long-standing question as to who do I think is the best of the Fab Four, my answer simply is, I don't know. I can't tell you, because they all had their strengths, and at any given day, depending on the division, depending on the weight, and depending on the individual, any one of them could win. I really enjoyed that.
Not fair.
Now, with that being said, if you have anything called a comment, please leave it in the comments below. And tell me how you differ, or if you have a specific individual who you think was better than the rest, then yeah, tell me. But tell me how. Tell me why. And tell me under what circumstances. Is it fair that everyone come up to middleweight and fight Marvin in his weight class? Marvin was in ridiculous shape. Never went down. What would he look like at lightweight? All right. But with that, please, if you like this episode, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It's your boy Bola, and that's Scoop.
Thanks very much. After all that heightened anticipation.
There I go.
Oh, man. I tell you what, my favorite fighter of the four, purely from a fan perspective, only for his razzle-dazzle and his charms.
Leonard?
Yep. Okay. But you had me convinced. It was Marvin Hagler.
Really?
Because, yes, you had me convinced because it took him so long to get to that, if you will, pinnacle of success, to go for that shot, and to get that shot. It was a deserved shot. that did he win? No, but and if he was he given another shot, would he have won? If he was given that, so you have me convinced as being the underdog of them all. Anyway, there you go. There you go.
I was convinced that you were going to say Duran because
you
I
know
started
what?
off with Duran, and I said he's the greatest lightweight of all time. The only thing is, none of the other three fought at lightweight. None of the other three.
I recently saw a picture of Duran and Leonard in their current day going. Have you seen that picture?
No.
They're nose to nose. I mean, Duran still looks like a bulldog compared to.
Duran's 250 pounds.
Wow.
5'8", 250 pounds. He's enjoying life.
He must be. He must be. But boy, they were great. All of them, great fighters,
Absolutely.
great rivalries. It'd be interesting to see your perspective, Ray, on the aftermath of the Fab Four, like what happened in their aftermath as one by one retired.
What was life after boxing look like?
Well, but what was boxing like after they had finished that intense rivalry throughout the 80s? What was that vacuum filled with? Like who came after those four to fill the fans full of hope? And
it was the '84 Olympic boys.
Yeah.
You had Pernell Whitaker, Evander Holyfield. Those two were big. The '88, you had Riddick Bowe, really brought hope back into the boxing world, and also you had the phenom, Mike Tyson.
Yeah, so the heavyweights more or less.
It went back to the heavyweights, which is where everyone was like. There was. It wasn't a rivalry anymore. It was just a destruction train with Tyson, right?
True, very true.
And then once he got beat, and people started figuring out how to fight Tyson, how to beat Tyson. The '90s was impressive. You had you had the matchups between Lennox, the Riddick Bowe. Well, they never met each other, but they flip-flop belts constantly. Evander Holyfield fighting both of them. That kept the sport really exciting. But then the middleweights again, you had Roy Jones Jr., who was just perfection. Young Roy was nothing short of perfection. He was able to do it all. And people still question whether or not if he had stayed at light heavy, as opposed to going up to fight John Ruiz and then come back down to light heavy to fight Antonio Tarver, would he have been? Who knows? So there you have it.
That's the beauty of it, eh?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right on. All right. So thanks for that. And thanks for wrapping it up so neatly with that question, answering a question.
Exactly.
Who is the best? I don't know. Who is the best? All right. Thanks very much, Ray. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate the viewership for tuning in, having a look and like and sharing and subscribing. And remember, if you're subscribing, ring that bell for notifications. And we'll see you tomorrow night, Ray.
Will do. Take care.